I know you already testified about this, but does an innocent person say if they had any evidence?
Right. Katie's saying it's the police, and I'm saying that we're innocent. They're not going to have any evidence to show we were part of something, that we were part of it. If we had any part of this, we'd be going to the airport right now. And I
Isn't
still
it
say
true,
the same
Doctor,
thing.
that they're not going to have any evidence because you were careful?
No, because we weren't a part of this.
You were smart.
No, we weren't a part of this.
You walled yourself off from
I was
the
sure
killers.
they're not going to have evidence to show I did something I didn't do. So we're not running to the airport.
You're untouchable, right?
No.
Donna Adelson was arrested right here at Miami International Airport on the jetway as she was getting ready to board a one-way flight to Vietnam. That's a country without extradition to the United States. Now she's in custody in Miami, waiting to be transferred to Tallahassee.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record. Okay, how is everyone? Wanted to talk today about Donna Adelson and how she really personifies the Adelson family, her values, how she expresses herself in her emails, her phone calls, all paint a picture of a woman and a family obsessed with winning, getting revenge, money, power, status, and completely devoid of any of the really important things or the values that we all agree are important. I thought family, love, empathy. She seems to be missing. And we always, when Charlie Adelson's jailhouse phone calls were released, we were all talking about Donna Adelson's amazing piece of audio tape where she's caught talking about fleeing to a non-extradition country and talking to Wendy about it. She can talk as a lawyer, right? A lawyer who doesn't talk. She wants to talk to her. Just this kind of hysteria she has through so much of the jailhouse calls. Totally hysterical. But she didn't know she was being recorded. So that's what's on the agenda for today. I'm going to look at some of her emails, some of the parts that really aren't discussed very often, and play a bit of the jailhouse call where she's caught on tape that's not talked about very often. But first, let's get into very interesting comments from last show. And let me just grab my glasses so I can read it, so I can read the screen. So this is from Happy 24/7. Less about them using their codes and symbols because that can't always be proven. Get her behind bars for the paper. So this commenter is talking about Wendy and how Wendy could be indicted and tried for this crime. So get Wendy behind bars for the paper, money, and digital trails. That's the key. She knew how she winded up getting chosen to get that particular bottle, how she strategically did over a dozen things out of hatred, the timing, paperwork needed to hide or do certain things. She felt overly comfortable with planning big changes as her problem would be no more a pattern of ultra sneaky, two-faced behavior, her lies about Harvey Adelson having cancer when she decided on X, Y, and Z, her multiple versions of stories. I don't remember. I think you're talking about how many times she said, I don't remember on the stand. What are you asking me? Also was another favorite refrain on the stand. Pathetic wordplay. So sad for those boys. Even if she only gets conspiracy, at least they will know their dad is the love they will get to protect no matter what they were told. So interesting. Well, first of all, I don't know if we've been talking so much about codes and symbols, and I know that they're brought up a lot, but certainly a lot of her behavior that maybe you wouldn't think of as evidence, if you can show that it deviates from a normal pattern of behavior and you stack them together, could make a case. Does she have a bad sense of direction like she testified to? But then again, there's the Castigar issues, right? Something she testified to that she didn't say, I don't believe, in her police interview. So they can't use that unless they first undo Castigar with some kind of perjury hearing. That immunity clause is such it's like you get to sort of building a case and then you get to the Castigar issues and then you're like, But there are other things. For example, Jeffrey Lacoste, did she break up with other boyfriends by giving them a 7-day thinking period? How common was that for her? Or did every boyfriend she ever was with, did she just break up with them on the spot? I mean, there's a lot of things that you didn't think of as evidence that can be put together. What I'm saying is her normal way of being, and shows has this deviates, but she claimed she was only temporarily in Miami, and she'd been living there in 5 years. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting trial, but to get those kinds of what you're talking about is digital trails. She was so comfortable handing over her phone. What's going to be found? And I don't think you could track her car back then. Maybe if her car had one of those tracker things. I doubt it. So what is there to, I think you're talking about emails and text messages, and we haven't seen any of those yet. And you wonder how much Donna's going to provide. So yes, this is why I pulled this comment up, because it really got me thinking, what are the digital traces? What are the money trails from Wendy? Only Wendy. Certainly there's money trails the other way. They did a good job. Connie 8798 says, hi, Roberta. As a retired teacher, I can say that the question of nature versus nurture here, I was asking, how did Rob Adelson, the older brother, get some kind of moral sense? And Wendy, Charlie, and Donna and Harvey seem so united in their kind of immoral, I would call it immoral. I don't know. What do you call that? Like a group think, a kind of group shared values that I would call pretty crappy. Money, status, getting revenge, being power, those kind of things. Why were they also united? And how did Rob, by his own description, said he always had a sense of that he had to do the right thing? How did that come to being? That's what I was asking. I can say that the question of nature versus nurture is a constant topic of conversation through my education and observation of students over the years, as well as being a parent and grandparent. I can confidently say that it's a combination of both. Robert Adelson obviously was born with the type of intelligence that compels him to consider others and be able to defy his mother. Wendy and Charlie were born with more narcissistic tendencies, and those were nurtured by Donna. This is the reason we have so many entitled young people. Their parents haven't taught them that they are the center of the universe. I also agree with your assessment of June. Funny how some people think the attractive people are above reproach and that our only criticism of them is due to their looks. I thought she was ridiculous, obviously very shallow, and I'm not one bit jealous of her or Katie. Love your channel. Thank you, Connie. Yeah, that was a comment I got that I shouldn't be critical of June and her devotion and willingness to try to walk back some of the things she said in her interview with law enforcement, because it was clear I was jealous of June and her good looks. And you get that a lot if you're criticizing, or I have gotten that a lot on my channel. I'm just jealous of Darlie Routier or Amanda Knox or someone else that I'm critical of. M_Christine 1070 says, Rob is good, but I think Charlie was manipulated into the situation, meaning manipulated into the conspiracy, being part of the conspiracy to murder Dan Markel. I don't believe her, meaning Wendy, and Charlie were close until he became the family, quote, hero, unquote, for getting rid of her problem. I think Wendy is the demon and manipulated her entire... I think Wendy is a demon and she manipulated her entire family. Donna was reacting to what she perceived as her daughter's suffering. Wendy manipulated her family's perception. Wendy is not seeing the light, in my opinion. She is abandoning her family and leaving them holding the bag after tricking them into doing something under completely false pretenses. Interesting. I don't know. I don't know if she's really abandoned them. I think this is a family that will look out, except for Rob, of course, that will look out for themselves. And I think if Donna was going to be the number one suspect, they would have all said Donna had nothing to do with it and she didn't know about it. Because don't forget, Donna and Harvey were on their way to board a plane to Vietnam to leave the grandchildren, Wendy, and pretty much never see them again unless they chose to travel to Vietnam. And I don't think they wouldn't think that they could do that safely. Because I'm talking about Wendy particularly. Charlie's not going anywhere now. He's in prison for life unless he can reverse it somehow on appeal. And even he says that's slim. Finnegan, Begin Again, one says, okay, so one thing that stood out to me in the accidental jail recording from Donna was in the emails to Wendy. One email said, quote, everyone is trying to protect you, and I bet you have a lot to think about, unquote. What does that mean? If my opinion is right that Wendy was involved, that line speaks volumes. I'd love to hear what the reason they give to explain that part. And that is a thing that came up when I was interviewing Deputy DA John Lewin. And I know I always talk about him, but he had so many interesting things to say. And in that, he said lawyers are really taught incorrectly in law school, in his opinion, and to only care about the question and don't care about the answer that comes out of the witness's mouth in direct or in cross-examination. He said, the trick is to ask the question of which there are no good answers. And that's, Finnegan, begin again, that's a great example of something that you could ask Donna, of which there is no good answer to that question. So very interesting. I'd love to hear what the reason they give to explain that part. Also, what WTF Ryan got busted. So they're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. The timing couldn't have been worse for him, meaning his interview with Judy of AA Legal Focus, where he has a friend knock on the door really loudly and then come ask for his steroids really loudly. He's a loser, says Finnegan, begin again. And yeah, Murder by Maestro created that video, did a really good job editing Judy of a Legal Focus's interview together, because I feel he's really was quite enmeshed with Charlie. He says he was one of his best friends, if not his best friends. He was traveling with him on his tourism trips to South America to be with girls who had under 18. How do we put that, right? Girls who aren't women yet. And if you're traveling alongside, even if you're not participating in that, you're condoning that. And we all know what Charlie's like, certainly from the jail calls, how Ryan could stand being around him if he was in fact that obsessive and repetitive. And speaking of the jail calls, shall we get into Donna Adelson's other busted hot mic moment? It's interesting. So they're doing their usual little song and dance about how horrible the trial was, how unfair it was, how incredibly good Dan Rashbaum's defense was, and how the people of Tallahassee were just too dumb to listen or couldn't make sense of the brilliant theory that Dan Rashi put out, which is, of course, that Charlie was extorted by the Latin kings. Well, they killed. Wait, hold on. I'm being unfair. First, they killed Dan Barkell on spec to scare him. Then they had Katie, who's 4 foot nothing, and 15, 20 pounds, maybe, to scare him into handing over a big pile of cash. And then they took payment plans, or they were going to murder him or hurt him next. They took payment plans from him. They didn't want his Ferrari. They didn't want any of the fancy things that he owned, any of his properties, businesses, nothing. They didn't want any of that profit. $3,000 a month was okay for them. So here we are once again with Donna and Charlie talking about the terrible, terrible injustice that was his trial.
I guess I'm just still in shock, and it's still the whole thing of like, being getting my life back to find out that I'm not.
I mean, listen, it is a shock, because it's like it wasn't even 24 hours earlier that everyone knew that's it, you're going to win, you go home. Or if there's some crazy thing and there's a hung jury, so be it. But it was clear that you were telling the truth. It was clear you had a ton of probable doubt. I mean, it was clear to everybody. This was not like, oh, this is going down.
It's not like it's going down. It's not like this defense was not going the way that they hoped. It's not like Rashi got really irritated with Charlie, and when Charlie handed Rashi yet another post-it note or tried to talk to him, and Rashi was like, You got to stop. Everybody remember that moment? That little break in their relationship? But in the Donna echo chamber, which is basically probably Donna, Harvey, and a few of their friends, they're all saying it's going great. He's going to be acquitted. But when's the last time you described a person who was innocent's trial as it had a whole lot of probable doubts? Wouldn't you just be hammering home the point that everybody could see you didn't do this, you were innocent, that you were extorted? Wouldn't you be arguing that? Not like a good jury could see that there was a bunch of probable doubts, reasonable doubt. And that's what they push in these phone calls. Reasonable doubt. And of course, we know from Dubin, Josh Dubin, his high-priced jury consultant, who really harangued the jury pool with this idea that you have to see him innocent all the way until you get into jury deliberations, until you start talking with the other jurors. And I don't even know how that's possible, because all they would be talking about is innocence. At that point, they'd all be in agreement. That's how that worked.
It wasn't anything like that. That's what makes it so difficult.
Nothing was going back. Dan was like, listen, the case is coming in better than he thought it would.
Yeah.
I said, Dan, are you happy with how it's going? He said, listen, because if you would have told me a month ago we'd be at this point in the case, at this point, with everybody who's testified and everything, I couldn't be happier. We're doing better than I really thought we would have. Then I anticipated we're doing as good or better, doing as good as I could have hoped. I'm very, very confident.
Hmm. Oh, I know. You weren't the only one who felt confident. Everybody felt confident. And again, in no way, in no way do I have any complaints about anything Dan did. He did what the best attorney would do, the most research that could be done, the most hours that could be put in, nights and weekends. I know he sat on the phone for hours the first 5 months that you were in solitary. He sat on the phone at night with you. I mean, my dad and I look at each other and say, what else could we have done? Was there anything else that we could have done that we didn't do? And said, no, we had the best. And we had the jury consultants, we had the best. And we had Tallahassee. And they didn't listen. Listen. Listen, Charlie. Can you hear me, Charlie? Charlie, can you hear me? Charlie? Clicked off. I bet it's because it was an hour. Yeah, he'll call me back.
So listen to how quickly her hysteria fades. So she goes from being like, Charlie, we had the best defense, Charlie. It was the best. It was the best. And to being like, oh, he clicked off. Just like Wendy in her police interview. Exactly the same criticism I have for Donna, I had for Wendy, which is when you get into that level of upset, your breath gets unsupported. You're kind of like hyperventilating a little bit. You can't catch your breath. That's why people will say to you, breathe when you're really upset. Because the first thing that gets upset is you get that uneven breath. No uneven breath here. She's like, oh, we're cut off. Okay, hysteria time over. My act of being so upset about this is over, right? Right? Thank you very much, Casey Taylor, for the super sticker. I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Kat Giselle. Didn't Wendy claim that she and Don were supposed to go for Dan, we're supposed to go for a walk after his workout to discuss the school issues? Is that when she had lost her voice, Kat? Is that what you're referring to? The time Wendy lost her voice. She couldn't talk, so she had to put it off. Isn't that likely what her original reason for going to the houses was going to be? But the neighbor found him. Interesting. I'd have to go back. Kat, thank you for your very generous super chat. I know that she had that planned to talk to him, but she lost her voice. But I don't know if going for a walk, because what I'm remembering, what's sticking in my mind, of course, is the walk that she had been on with her friend Jane in the weeks before the murder. But I don't remember, but I will have to go back. You may be right. Let me know in the chat if Kat is right. Those are the things that I remember. But yes, she did have a planned scheduled date to talk about Dan and the schools that they were supposed to, something about the school. Let me see if I can catch up with the chat, and we'll get back to Donna in a hot second. Was that something on the agenda? Wow. I think I'm way too far behind. I'm sorry. Sorry, Kat. I'll get back to you on that. But I do know, yeah, where Ben would be going to school. But I didn't know if it was a walk. That's my question. Was it a walk that she had planned? What? Wendy said in her police interview that she got an alarm notification. I wonder about that too, Intolerant, from Dan's house the day before the murder. Rivera saw Wendy on the street by Dan's house the day before. Yeah, I wonder about that too. So, yeah. Oh, it was at the school. Someone's saying that walk was at the school. Okay. Thanks, guys. Like I said, I'm not the premier expert on this case. I am still learning as I go. So let's get back into it. So Donna has been interrupted from her hysteria. She thinks she's cut off once again, but she is still being recorded. So let's take a listen to what she says. All the hysteria is gone.
Okay. You can make her aware now that the things that we need to discuss are private. If George wants to remain in the lobby, he can, but I have
I'm sorry. I think this went a little further than I wanted it to. I think we're around here.
Oh, I know. You weren't the only one who felt confident. Everybody felt confident. And again, in no way, in no way do I in no way to have any complaints about anything Dan did. He did what the best attorney would do, the most research that could be done, the most hours that could be put in, nights and weekends. And I know he sat on the phone for hours the first 5 months that you were in solitary. He sat on the phone at night with you. I mean, yes, my dad and I look at each other and say, what else can we have done? Is there anything else that we could have done that we didn't do? And said, no, we had the best. And we had the jury consultants, we had the best. And we had Tallahassee. And they didn't listen. Listen. Listen, Charlie. Can you hear me, Charlie? Charlie, can you hear me? Charlie? Clicked off. I bet it's because it was an hour. Yeah, he'll call me back. Okay. You can make her aware now that the things that we need to discuss are private. If George wants to remain in the lobby, he can, but I have a lot of personal information that I need to give. You call her. Yeah. I mean, just say it. I don't care if she's holding up a speaker.
So here the hysteria is gone, and we get the very businesslike Donna talking about Wendy and her boyfriend, George, and how she wants him to stay in the car because she has important paperwork. Because as we know, Donna and Harvey bought their ticket to Vietnam night of the 7th, day after Charlie's conviction. So they had this all planned. They wanted Wendy to know their plans, know their financial stuff is what she said. But this is probably has to do with fleeing, where they're going to be, where they're going. And she wants George to not be a part of it because she's talking, right? Remember? She's talking to Wendy as a lawyer who doesn't talk. Right. I just really love this call. Charlie, you there? Okay, now I can drop the act. I can drop the act. It kills me every time.
Say, George, if you need George to drive you, you can, or I'll say it in a nice way. Well, I don't want to use this phone. She's going to call me back. What did she say? A little after 8? Yeah.
So that is Donna's little unknown, or what she didn't know was being recorded, little hot mic moment. Find it interesting because I think the talking points have been around Wendy is that the whole family's angry with Wendy, which I think Donna is somewhat annoyed with Wendy, but and Charlie is annoyed because, in my view, Wendy ruined it for all of them by driving by the crime scene. Try explaining that. And she has. And she has so many different explanations, and they all are terrible. I have a bad sense of direction. It's my way of coming to terms with a divorce. It's the shortcut, depending on what day it is, which one she'll give. And that she bought Bullet Bourbon. So for Charlie and Donna, those were major F-ups in their plan. Charlie thinks if it weren't for Wendy, he wouldn't be convicted. And Donna's feeling used by her daughter, but it's so funny because she's doing exactly how she was taught to behave. So I'm going to take a quickie break. When I come back from the break, just rest my voice a bit. We're going to look at some of the emails, some parts of the emails that aren't often discussed. Donna's crazy emails to Wendy when we get back. Don't go anywhere. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Just want to thank everyone who's recently become a patron. There is a new episode up talking about the Adelson family with Sonny Tanner, who went to Charlie Adelson's entire trial, including voir dire, which is a really interesting part that most people missed. So that is up there, along with a bunch of other exclusive content. So emails dressing up the kids in Nazi uniforms. This was all of Donna's suggestions for Wendy to gain control. Control was such a theme in all of these emails. But what's often not discussed is some of the financial stuff that they talk about. Let me see. So this is taking me to the... Oh, darn. I'm going the opposite way. Hold on one second. I will show you that one in a second, but I want to go... just chronologically. Or close to it. Yeah. So we start in May. So this is her May email to Wendy. And it says, Dear Wendy, okay, just saw this email this morning. Obviously, his, meaning Dan's, 23-page rant was insufficient. So he's now trying to push the court to deny hearing your position. Again, I'm not a lawyer. We know you're not a lawyer, Donna, because you talk. I don't know if to prevent any action, your attorney must respond or not. Only you and she know that. However, and I'm going to use this horrible nickname that I hate for Dan that they use just so to stay true to these emails. However, Jibbers has made his divorce a full-time job to attempt to get what he's always gotten his way. Which is interesting because I haven't heard anyone else describe their marriages like that. If anything, it's always been described as a partnership. According to Ruth Markel, he kind of downplayed his accomplishments and really was very proud of Wendy's accomplishments. His job allows, back to the email, his job allows for lots of time for him to put into his project, which means the divorce. And you know as well as I do that all the research he's done on different case law to prove his point is his research, not his attorney's. No matter who did it, he is quoting 13 cases to show why the court basically should throw out your petition. Is Kristen, Wendy's lawyer, answering this? Does it require an answer to make sure that it is not seen by the courts as ignoring his rights? I don't know. You need to find out. The most important part of your divorce is relocation. I sincerely hope your attorney understands that this is non-negotiable. Lots of things are negotiable. That's the one thing that you cannot let her think. Okay, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. She needs to hear from you how serious you are about this and how it will benefit the children with a close-knit family support system, as well as your significantly better paying job with hours much more flexible than your current job, so that you can spend significantly more time with the children, which requires teaching hours, office hours, court appearances, meetings with med school people, and multiple trips away from home. Those trips need to be coordinated with a very angry man. Talk about projection. A very angry man. So very much like Wendy. So cheat on Jeffrey Lacoste, admit you're cheating, then deny it, and then say you have to break up with him because you can't handle his lack of trust in you, right? So it's a kind of reversal that she's doing. Donna is clearly very angry with Dan. A nickname has been created. She says he always gets his way. He's made the divorce a full-time job. He's a religious zealot, she'll say in other emails. But he's the angry one. A very angry man who will not be cooperative with you in this regard. So because he won't give up his job and his home, where all his friends are now, he's inflexible. For example, this past weekend, you had your annual conference for blank at the same time his regular NYU crap was taking place. He didn't say, I go to NYU every month and this is your annual meeting. I'll stay with the children and you go. Of course not. Danny thinks he's a very important person, and as always, he and his needs come first. So without your parents as backup, one of you would have had to stay home with the children. Your attorney needs to understand that your mother worked full-time in the family dental practice until September, when she felt she was needed by you for the well-being of the children, to get them through a transitional time with people who love them and see them frequently and with whom they share great affection. Your father has made numerous trips by plane for weekends and changing the patient's schedules around that so that he can continue to spend significant time with the children. Both the disappearance of your mother from the position of office manager and disappearance of your father from the practice for a significant amount of time has caused a decrease in the practice income and the loss of some patients who feel that it's either not being run the same way as when my mother was there full time, or that my father is unable to see patients. So I thought this was interesting. First off, just as she's giving Wendy the arguments, even though she's not a lawyer, she's giving Wendy all her arguments that she wants Wendy to bring up in court, and money being a significant issue, that the practice is now losing money. That's what she wants Wendy to tell the court. And of course, using the children as a pawn. The best place for them is in Miami. And I can see Donna telling Wendy, the children won't even remember their father. They'll get over this. They'll have the support, this wonderful family, because they really see themselves as the elite family. We know how dysfunctional they are and psychopathic, in my view, but they view themselves as absolutely perfect parents, perfect grandparents, and they are needed at all times. So using the children as a pawn in this one, but they get significantly more frantic as it goes on. So, oh, wait. Oh, I did it again. I'm sorry. Hold on. I will show you that one eventually. So this is the more famous one where she talks about dressing up the kids in Nazi uniforms. Okay, here we go. So this is from June 2013. Dear Wendy, since neither one of us feel up to talking, let me share with you what we're all feeling as you respond. What I wrote to you this morning, we felt that you had reasonable thoughts as to what the judge might do or say or think regarding the charade we hoped you would participate in. So what charade is? So I assume she means the charade of working out this divorce settlement. And so already you see the Adelson's attitude towards court and the law. However, the more we think about that, we begin to realize that you and we have no idea what this judge will do or say or think. Who would have thought that after paying an attorney $600 per hour for 10 months, she would take an hour and a half of testimony, meaning the judge, not even bother calling gibbers to the stand, and decide that the family support for very young children evidently means nothing. It means nothing. And a job that pays 10 times what your unsecured, untenured, and dependent upon state budget cuts job pays in Tallahassee will be just fine for your children. Does she care that after expenses you'll save next to nothing at the end of a year? So always money. So when I read these emails, I thought the people that brought up money as a motive for this murder are really right on target. Money constantly comes up in these emails. Does she care that very little, if anything, will be put away for the children for their current and future education? Does she care that extra curricular activities, sports, trips, eating out in restaurants will always be a financial challenge for you to provide for the boys? I mean, I never heard Wendy was struggling financially. This is a new one. Clearly, obviously, she was the poorest of anyone in her family, but that's compared to the rest of her family. Clearly, she did not take into consideration the future earning potential and benefit for your children. She didn't care that there's no backup support system when one of your preschoolers are sick. All she cared about was all she cared about was if the father hasn't been pulling out their toenails, you should give up any financial betterment for you and your children and raise them in a place that you agree to go to only because Gibbers had an FSU job offer. Of course, as a graduate of FSU Law School and a native of Tallahassee, she sees nothing wrong with living there. Obviously, as a native of South Florida, you know better. And that's a theme. We know better. We are the law. We know better than the law. We are the law. And if it doesn't go our way, we will take matters into our own hands. And no one F's with the Adelson family, as Harvey said. So this is very long, but I thought this was particularly interesting. Our point is, it's obvious that you and Kristen, Wendy's lawyer, haven't figured out the judge so far. You were both shocked at the rapid decision based on nothing that was presented. So how do you think at this point You can figure out what the judge will say regarding your decision to introduce Christianity into the boys' lives. People go to prison and change their religion all the time. So is she comparing Tallahassee to prison? People go through difficult times and find Jesus. Jesus was Jewish. He had positive teachings. He gives people hope. And best of all, you get to go to heaven in the end. Sounds good to me. Obviously, it will sound good to Judge Hobbs. She goes to church. There were multiple donations from her church pastors and ministers on her financial contributions website. She's a Southern Black lady. How do you know it won't be music to her ears to hear this? So Donna has gone full stalker mode on this judge. And so this is probably, I think, where this idea of Christianity really became an obsession. The judge will like it. So forget, I don't know, some possible options on Judge Hobbs' decision on Jewish holidays. As far as losing children on the Jewish holidays, there are a couple of alternatives to this. And so basically what Donna says is, if you don't get your way and Dan is given the Jewish holidays, then you threaten Dan privately with all the Christian things you're going to do with the kids. It's really reeks of self-hatred. And this is the part that Georgia read. She talks about you need to help yourself. Obviously, the court isn't out to help you. It's clear since the Judge Hobbs' last ruling that she should care less about anything you had to say in your behalf. You need to help yourself. And that's in capitals, bold. You know, Wendy, most of the wars that have been fought for the last couple of thousands of years have been over religion. Charlie brought up a good point, and he's talking about Nazis dressing up American soldiers as Nazis behind enemy lines. I mean, she's comparing this divorce to World War II. It's just, I just thought it was very disturbing. You need to see the big picture. You need to look into the future. What a life with only your family nearby, teaching in Tallahassee with Danny, always in the picture, will give you. It's not a pretty picture. We want to see you help yourself. Not everything one has to do in life is comfortable or easy. Sometimes it's ridiculously hard, but Jibbers has tried to aggravate and screw you since day one of this divorce. His vicious emails, his defiance with Dr. Pam's direction on asking him not to come to the school every day when he doesn't have the boys, his not allowing you to pick the children up 1 hour earlier to drive to Atlanta, his bad-mouthing you to the faculty at the school you work at. Everything he does is done with malicious intent. So that's a bit of projection, I would bet. But doesn't it sound like she's preparing Wendy for Dan's murder here? Not everything is easy. It's really eerie. And the last one is all about getting Dan deposed. And she calls him Elvis in this one, which is so weird. She says, honey, okay, your attorney must depose Elvis to see if any of the retirement accounts that Elvis has have ever had a check written from them during the course of your marriage. If any of them were funded through any of your joint assets, your mutual Schwab account, or in any way passed through joint financial accounts, then you are entitled to a portion of those accounts. even if nothing was ever done improperly on those accounts. And he has some very large retirement accounts. Let's aggravate him the way he's trying to aggravate you, and make him do the research and show statements from every month, from the date of your marriage to the date of the filing of the divorce. You need to see whatever he deposited into those accounts, where the money came from. It's very possible some of it came from your joint Schwab account. And then he's up Schitt's Creek. Why shouldn't he have to do this? It's what I mentioned to Kristen in court yesterday, and she nodded her head. Now she needs to do something about it. It just seems ridiculous for him to be able to depose you, but for you and Kristen not to give him the same crap he's been pulling on you. It's time to give it to him. So what I hear is, if he's going to accuse you of hiding assets, let's punish him and make him show every statement, it's all retaliatory, and none of it's dealing with the real issue, which is if Wendy hid assets, she's really the one up a creek there. So that is kind of what I have for today. I guess it's a little bit of a short one, but I did want to go through those very wild and strange emails. Actually, one other thing I thought was interesting before I go. There's a really interesting article written. When Charlie was arrested, and it goes into the family connections. So it talks about the family's powerful connections, and this could be one of the reasons why we didn't see an Adelson arrest till way late in this case. So Charlie was, of course, arrested after Katie and the shooters, and he's finally been convicted. And now we have now it's 2023, and now we have Donna's trial to look forward to. The picture painted by the Dolce Vita recordings, so those are the secret recordings of Charlie and Katie talking, as well as hundreds of now public wiretaps. So this is sorry, I didn't really introduce this very well. This is an article from Florida Politics, and it was written by Peter Schwartz. So, which I think he's done the best coverage on this case. Best articles I've read, most detailed articles I've read have been from him. Okay, the picture painted by the Dolce Vita's recordings, as well as hundreds of now public wiretaps, reveal a man with feet in two very different worlds: a Ferrari driving periodontist and a real estate investor who speaks freely with family and friends about steroid peddling, tax evasion, and traveling overseas to cavort with very young women. He bragged about lying to law enforcement when getting pulled over, claiming he was a surgeon heading to Broward General, and talked with others about his collection of automatic weapons. Many of these conversations were captured before the bump, when Charlie did not suspect he was being listened to, while those afterwards were full of coded language. Other evidence submitted to the courts suggests a history of conflict and antisocial behavior. One witness interviewed after the murder places Charlie at the center of a blackmail attempt and questionable business dealings. Another such story alleged that Charlie had cheated in dental school and had to turn to powerful family connections to avoid consequences. One particular family connection, the former chief judge of Broward County and longtime state senator, who is Wendy's godfather, Peter Weinstein, and his son, Michael Weinstein, was not only Charlie's lifelong friend, but was also his lawyer at the time of the murder, providing advice to Charlie following the bump and defending the family on local and national television shows. These details may not have come into public attention so soon were it not for Michael Weinstein's entering the race for Florida House District 681 in 2020, leading case followers, including the organization Justice for Dan, to question what role, if any, Peter and Michael had played in protecting the Adelson family after Dan's murder. Charlie and Wendy have powerful connections too, no doubt. At the time of the bump, Wendy was working as a clerk in a federal court. Charlie and Donna discussed this on a wiretap, revealing that Wendy's judge was getting information from a Tallahassee judge to share with her about the case. Other current and former state legislators, local judges, and political advocates are in Adelson circles too. Just 2 months ago, Wendy was seen in a video with her current employer, Jason Feldman of Vault Health, and Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. She has received public support from her former employee, Miami billionaire Mike Fernandez, and has been seen mingling with billionaire Mike Bloomberg. She's like Zelig. She's like everywhere. The Markell family has the backing of allies too. Indeed, their story inspired the Florida legislator. Okay, so this goes into the Markells and how they passed the Markell Act. And it points out that Wendy moved to Miami only days after Dan Markell's murder, fulfilling her longtime goal of relocating to South Florida. And shortly afterwards, she changed their sons' last names from Markell to Adelson, saying she had to do so for their safety. Records reveal Wendy indicated to the court that she was restoring their last name to a former name, a falsehood that may have afforded a smoother or more efficient transition. This move, in addition to alienating the Markells from their grandchildren, was traumatizing to a family already deeply grieving. So how is she still holding on to her law license? I mean, with all these allegations of lying. So according the way I see it, she perjured herself in all 3 trials. She applies for this name change under false pretenses. I mean, how is she still holding on to it? Have there just been no complaints, or is it just, are these seen as minor issues? That's my question. It's just amazing what she can get away with. Do you guys have questions? I'm going to close it out for the day if you don't. Just a shorty for today about Donna. Donna. Okay. All right. Have a great night, everybody. I will see you back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern. Have a good one.